Sir, please, I'm begging you, don't dismiss this. Something terrible is coming. You don't see it, but I do.
You forget your place, Anna. This is not your concern. Your job is to clean, not to advise.
If you're just tuning into this channel, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up and tell us where you're watching from. In the gleaming mansions of Kigali's elite, secrets often thrive in the shadows, whispered only to those who listen closest. But what if the greatest threat to a millionaire's empire wasn't lurking in rival boardrooms, but stirring right beneath his own roof? Observed by the most unassuming eyes. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your gut screamed danger, but everyone else saw only opportunity? What if the person you trusted most, a confidant of 30 years, was the very one plotting your downfall? And what if the most insightful warning came not from a business advisor, but from the quiet presence often overlooked, a housemaid? This is the story of Gabe Canny, a titan of industry who built his fortune from nothing, transforming a small construction company into the powerful Canny Group, with interests spanning real estate, telecommunications, and banking. His mansion is in Kigali's most exclusive neighborhood and was a monument to his success. Yet, despite all his achievements, Gabe was on the precipice of losing everything. He was blinded by long-standing loyalty and the allure of a colossal $50 million deal from Dubai, unaware he was walking into a meticulously laid trap. The only person who saw the danger, who noticed the subtle shifts and the hushed conversations, was Anna Keza. Anna, at 32, had hands already rough from years of diligent work. For 3 years, she had been a silent fixture in Gabe's opulent home. She arrived each morning at 5:30 a.m., taking 2 buses and walking the final kilometer up a steep hill to reach the mansion. While other staff lived in the servants' quarters, Anna chose to return each night to her one-room apartment in Nyamirambo, saving every franc to support her younger siblings back in her village near Musanze. Her life was one of quiet duty, observation, and sacrifice. She prepared Gabe's coffee just so, cleaned his vast home, and moved through his world as an almost invisible presence. But her eyes missed nothing. She noticed the lines of stress on Gabe's face, the subtle shifts in tone, and the growing tension around the impending business meeting. This quiet maid, whose very existence in the house was simply to serve, held the key to her employer's salvation or his ruin. Join us now as we explore this extraordinary tale of ambition, deceit, and an unbreakable bond that proves some connections run deeper than any secret, leading to a discovery that will forever change a powerful man's life. Each morning, long before the sun fully illuminated Kigali's hills, Anna Keza's day began. At 5:30 a.m., she was already navigating the city's awakening, first by 2 bustling buses, then by a determined walk up the final kilometer of steep road leading to Gabe Canny's imposing mansion. Her hands, though still capable, bore the marks of years spent in relentless service, cleaning and caring for the homes of others. Unlike some of the other staff who resided in the servants' quarters, Anna always returned to her humble one-room apartment in Nyamirambo. Every rondin franc she earned, every extra hour she worked, was meticulously set aside. Her siblings, back in their village near Musanze, depended on her, and that knowledge fueled her disciplined existence. In Gabe's world of excess, Anna remained grounded, her priorities clear, her focus unwavering. Anna, my coffee! Gabe's voice would boom from his home office, a commanding sound that cut through the morning stillness. Coming, sir, she would call back, her movements precise and swift. She knew his preference. Rwandan coffee with just a hint of sugar, served at precisely the right temperature. When she entered his office, Gabe, a man of 50, still carried the broad build of a university rugby player, though the relentless demands of business had etched lines onto his face and peppered his closely cropped hair with gray. He rarely looked up from his laptop, his attention fully consumed by the digital world before him. "Your coffee, sir," she would say, placing the cup carefully on his polished mahogany desk. He would acknowledge her with a grunt, or sometimes a terse instruction. "The investors from Dubai are coming next week. Make sure the house is spotless." His singular focus was clear: the upcoming deal consuming his thoughts. Among Gabe's inner circle, Tom Ganza stood out. A childhood friend and longtime business partner, Tom was the embodiment of charisma. Where Gabe was stern and direct, Tom was all smiles, charm, and easy conversation. A perfect public face for their business ventures. Anna observed the dynamic between the two men. Tom frequently visited, his presence often signaling a shift in the mansion's atmosphere. One afternoon, while dusting shelves in the library adjacent to the small conference room, Anna's attention was drawn by raised voices. Curiosity compelled her to move closer, her movements silent as she approached the door. "Gabe, this is the opportunity of a lifetime," Tom declared, his voice filled with an almost desperate eagerness. "The Sheikh is willing to invest $50 million. Gabe's reply carried a note of caution, a flicker of his seasoned skepticism. "It seems too good to be true. Why us? Why now?" The conversation continued, a tense exchange that held Anna still by the door. She heard papers being shuffled, the rustle of important documents. "These projections can't be right," Gabe insisted, his voice firm. "No mining operation yields returns this quickly." Tom's reassurances were smooth, almost too smooth. "Trust me, I've verified everything." Then came the words that sent a chill down Anna's spine. "What about the government approvals? Environmental impact studies?" Gabe questioned. "All taken care of," Tom replied, his tone dismissive. "The Sheikh has connections. The minister has been accommodated." A long pause followed, heavy with unspoken implications. "I don't like it," Gabe finally stated, his voice now laced with deep concern. "It smells like the Butare deal all over again." Tom's tone hardened then, losing its earlier charm. "This is nothing like Butare. You're becoming too cautious in your old age." "Caution kept me alive when others fell," Gabe retorted, a sharp edge in his voice. "I won't be rushed." Tom's final push was a plea masked as a demand. "The meeting is in 6 days. Just hear them out." "For me." Anna quickly moved away as the door opened, Tom emerging, his usual smile replacing the scowl when he noticed her. "Ah, Anna! Always working so diligently," he said, his charm returning instantly. "How is your family?" "They are well, sir. Thank you for asking." Anna replied, her voice soft. Tom reached into his pocket, pulling out a crisp 10,000 Rwandan franc note. "For your brother's school fees," he offered, pressing it into her palm. "Thank you, sir, but," Anna began, but Tom insisted, his fingers closing around hers for a moment too long. No, I insist. We take care of our own, don't we?" The gesture, meant to be kind, left Anna with a distinct sense of unease. It was a generosity that felt misplaced, almost a payment for her silence. Later that evening, as she prepared Gabe's dinner, the overheard conversation and Tom's unsettling touch lingered in her mind. She noticed Gabe staring distantly at his phone. "Is everything all right, sir?" she ventured, a rare departure from her usual reserved demeanor. He looked up, surprised by her question, and for a fleeting moment, his usual guard dropped. "Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to wonder if you've been blind all along?" he asked, his voice low. "Yes, sir," she answered honestly. "My ex-husband. He seemed perfect until I discovered he had another family in Huey." Gabe actually laughed then, a rare, genuine sound in the usually quiet mansion. "Life teaches hard lessons." "Yes, sir, but sometimes. The signs are there before the lesson," she said carefully, hesitating, "if you'll forgive me for saying so." He studied her for a long moment, a flicker of something new in his eyes. "You're quite observant for a maid." "I was a school teacher before the education reforms," Anna admitted, her gaze steady. "Teaching literature taught me to read people as well as books." "A teacher?" Gabe seemed genuinely surprised. "Why didn't you mention this before?" "You didn't ask, sir," she said simply, returning to her duties, leaving Gabe to ponder this new information about his quiet, perceptive maid. Over the next few days, a subtle yet persistent change settled over the mansion. Tom's visits became more frequent, and he rarely came alone. The men accompanying him were unfamiliar, their faces blank, their presence unsettling. Their voices, once heard only in snippets, now became hushed murmurs that would cease abruptly whenever Anna entered a room. The conversations would stop mid-sentence, replaced by an uncomfortable silence, and then a forced, often overly cheerful greeting from Tom. Twice, Anna found Tom alone in Gabe's office, his engine fixed on Gabe's laptop. Both times, he would quickly close the screens upon her entrance, a telltale sign of activity he wished to conceal. These small observations, strung together by Anna's keen perception, began to form a disturbing pattern, building a quiet sense of unease within the usually disciplined household. On Thursday night, as the mansion settled into its evening quiet, Anna moved through Gabe's private quarters, collecting laundry. Behind his nightstand, something caught her eye. A folder, half hidden, as if it had fallen and been forgotten. A surge of professional restraint warred with a powerful, almost urgent curiosity. The unusual activities of the past days had heightened her senses. Hesitantly, she reached down and retrieved the folder. Inside, her heart began to race. There were photographs of the sheik they were scheduled to meet, but disturbingly, also surveillance photos of Gabe himself, alongside screenshots of his personal bank statements. Her eyes fell on a document prominently titled Operation Sandgold. The words echoed the illicit undertones she had heard in Tom's hushed conversations. This was so ordinary business file. It was a dossier of deception, a direct threat to Gabe. With trembling hands, Anna carefully replaced every item exactly as she found it, her mind reeling from the discovery. That night, sleep offered little reprieve. She was torn between her position as a maid, a silent servant, and a growing, desperate concern that Gabe, her employer who had been strict but fair, was unknowingly walking into a perilous trap. The following morning, Gabe appeared unusually tired. His shoulders stooped slightly under an unseen burden. As Anna served his breakfast, she gathered every ounce of her courage. "Sir," she began carefully, her voice barely a whisper, "may I speak freely?" Gabe looked up from his newspaper, his eyes narrowing slightly. "What is it?" he asked, his tone still sharp from the previous day's stresses. She hesitated, her resolve wavering for a moment. "I believe there may be something wrong with the Dubai investors." Gabe's expression hardened instantly. "What do you know about my investors?" he demanded, his voice turning cold. "Nothing specific, sir, but I've noticed Mr. Tom behaving strangely, and there are men coming and going at odd hours." Gabe's gaze intensified. "You're spying on my business associates?" he snapped. "No, sir. I simply observe while doing my work." And she took a deep breath, pushing past her fear. "I accidentally found some documents. Photos of you. Bank statements. Something called Operation Sandgold." A dark cloud descended over Gabe's face. "You went through my personal papers?" he accused, his voice edged with accusation. "No, sir. They fell behind your nightstand. I was collecting laundry and—" "Enough!" Gabe stood abruptly, his fist hitting the table with a soft thud. "You forget your place, Anna. You are my maid, not my advisor. Clean the house, cook the meals, and leave business matters to those who understand them." "But sir," she pleaded, desperate to make him understand. "One more word, and you can find new employment," he threatened, his voice a chilling finality. "Now get out." Anna retreated, tears stinging her eyes. She had risked her job, her livelihood, everything, to warn him, and he had completely dismissed her. As she cleaned the kitchen, the impulse to quit immediately was powerful, but the faces of her siblings, depending on her salary, stopped her. The weight of her conviction, however, remained. Later that afternoon, Gabe left for his office downtown without another word. After completing her chores, Anna was preparing to leave when she heard the security gate open. Thinking it was Gabe returning, she went to the foyer, only to find Tom entering with two unfamiliar men. "Anna!" Tom seemed startled, his usual composure briefly disrupted. "I thought you left at 5. "I was just finishing up, sir," she said, keeping her eyes lowered, feigning submission. "Good, good. These are associates from Dubai," he gestured to the men. "We need to prepare some documents for tomorrow's meeting." "Would you like me to prepare refreshments, sir?" she offered, trying to gauge their reaction. "No," Tom said quickly. Too quickly. "You can go. We know where everything is." Anna, but something within her, a force stronger than her fear, compelled her to circle back to the garden, where she could observe Gabe's office from a hidden vantage point. What she saw solidified her worst fears. The men were not preparing documents. They were systematically going through Gabe's desk, photographing papers and copying files from his computer. One man installed a small, inconspicuous device behind the large painting on the wall. A listening device, or perhaps a camera, she correctly surmised. Anna slipped away unnoticed, her mind racing. She had to warn Gabe again, but he had made it abundantly clear he would not listen to her spoken words. As she rode the bus home, a decision formed, one that could cost her everything. She would write it all down. Every observation, every overheard word, every suspicious action she had witnessed that evening. The next morning, Gabe returned home late. On his bed, he found an envelope. Inside was a neatly handwritten letter from Anna, detailing everything she had observed and overheard over the past week, culminating in what she had witnessed just hours earlier. At first, anger flared that his maid would dare to interfere again, but as he read further, the meticulous details, the precision of her account began to connect in his mind. Small inconsistencies in Tom's stories, the unusually generous terms of the deal, the minister's sudden cooperation after years of obstruction. He checked behind the painting and found the device. Not just a microphone, but a sophisticated transmitter. His security sweep revealed 2 more in the conference room and 1 in his private bathroom. The chilling reality of the betrayal hit him with full force. The plot thickens, doesn't it? If you're on the edge of your seat wondering what happens next, hit that like button and tell us in the comments, would you have risked everything to warn someone who dismissed you? Instead of confronting Tom immediately, Gabe spent the night consumed by the contents of Anna's letter. His initial anger at her interference slowly transformed into a dawning, chilling realization. Each detail she had meticulously described began to click into place, fitting perfectly with the small inconsistencies he had subconsciously noted but dismissed. Tom's unusual urgency, the sheik's overly generous terms, the minister's sudden cooperation after years of resistance. It all started to make dreadful sense. He moved to the painting Anna mentioned and, with a grim determination, found the small, sophisticated device hidden behind it. It wasn't just a microphone, it was a transmitter. A quick, thorough sweep of his office revealed 2 more in the conference room, and a final one, almost unbelievably, in his private bathroom. The shock and horror of such a profound betrayal, orchestrated by his closest friend, settled over him with a cold weight. Gabe didn't sleep. The night became a relentless period of investigation. He sat, hunched over his own laptop, cross-referencing information, digging into financial records, and calling upon obscure contacts he had cultivated over decades. He uncovered a web of deception that chilled him to the core. The man Tom presented as Sheikh Abdullah was, in fact, Kareem, an international swindler wanted in 3 countries for investment fraud. The bank account numbers linked to the deal led not to legitimate businesses, but to a maze of shell companies in the Cayman Islands. And the mining concession itself, the supposed centerpiece of this grand investment, was entangled in a long-standing environmental protection litigation. Crucial information that Tom had deliberately withheld, buried deep within the legal documents. By the first light of dawn, Gabe had amassed irrefutable proof, a complete picture of the elaborate scheme to defraud him. When Anna arrived at work that morning, she expected immediate dismissal. Her heart pounded as Gabe called her into his office. He gestured to a chair, one normally reserved for esteemed business associates, not household staff. Hesitantly she sat, bracing for the inevitable. "You risked your job to warn me," Gabe stated, his voice devoid of anger replaced by a quiet intensity. "Why?" Her answer was simple, direct, and powerful. "Because it was right," she replied, meeting his gaze. "And because you have been fair to me, strict but fair." Gabe studied her for a long moment, a new respect in his eyes. "What you did showed loyalty I didn't expect," he admitted, his voice tinged with bitter irony. "I've been betrayed by business partners, ex-wives, even family. But my maid turns out to be the only honest person around me." He shook his head, a dry, humorless laugh escaping him. "It seems my perception was severely flawed." "What will you do, sir?" Anna asked, her voice barely a whisper, yet filled with a deep concern for his future. Gabe's expression hardened, a steely resolve settling over his features. "Spring the trap," he said, a glint in his eye. "But I need your help." The words hung in the air, a profound shift in their dynamic. The employer was now seeking assistance from his maid, acknowledging her unique insight and unwavering integrity. Anna, despite her apprehension, felt a surge of purpose. The next day, the mansion buzzed with an unusual undercurrent of controlled activity. The sheikh and his entourage were scheduled to arrive at noon for lunch before the formal meeting. Anna worked silently, following Gabe's instructions with precision, her movements deliberate, her eyes alert. When Tom arrived early, Gabe greeted him with a warmth that completely belied the storm brewing within him. He gave no indication that anything was amiss, playing the role of the unsuspecting victim to perfection. They reviewed presentation materials together in the conference room, which was now cleared of the surveillance devices placed by Tom, but subtly equipped with Gabe's own newly installed high-definition recording system. "Everything is perfect," Tom assured Gabe, his voice radiating confidence, perhaps even a hint of glee. "By tonight, we'll be partners in the biggest deal of our careers." Gabe merely smiled, a tight, knowing smile. "Indeed," he echoed, a world of unspoken meaning in that single word. When the Dubai delegation finally arrived, their presence filled the grand foyer with an artificial aura of importance. Anna served lunch with her usual quiet efficiency, but her eyes, sharper than ever, observed every detail. The sheikh spoke with an accent that, to Anna's trained ear, seemed to slip occasionally, revealing a subtle shift in pronunciation, a momentary lack of authenticity. His financial advisor was a man of few words, his gaze perpetually fixed on Gabe, a constant, calculating watchfulness. After lunch, the group transitioned to the conference room. Anna served coffee, her movements deliberate, ensuring she caught every nuance. Then she quietly disappeared, not to the kitchen as expected, but to Gabe's private security room. From there, through a discreet monitor and audio feed, she could watch and listen to everything unfolding in the conference room. The presentation began smoothly, a meticulously crafted charade. The fake sheikh presented impressive projections and testimonials, his voice resonating with an air of authority. Documents, thick with fabricated figures, were passed around the table. Tom beamed with undisguised pride, his face radiating satisfaction at the imminent success of their deceit. Then, Gabe stood to give his response. A hushed anticipation filled the room. "Gentlemen, I must say I'm impressed," he began, his voice calm, measured. "Not by this fictitious mining concession or your fraudulent projections, but by the sheer audacity of your scheme." The room fell silent, the smiles on the faces of the delegation slowly dissolving into confusion, then alarm. "Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? That I would simply hand over $20 million as my initial commitment to partners I've barely met?" Gabe's gaze then settled squarely on Tom, piercing through his carefully constructed facade. "Or did you count on our 30-year friendship to blind me?" "Gabe, what are you talking about?" Tom stammered, his face contorting in confusion, then panic. "These are legitimate businessmen." "Save it," Gabe interrupted, his voice now steel. With a click of a button, photos flashed onto the large screen at the front of the room. "This man is not Sheikh Abdullah. His name is Kareem, wanted in 3 countries for investment fraud. And you," he pointed an accusing finger at the financial advisor, "are Mikhail, formerly of the Russian FSB, now specializing in corporate blackmail. The men shifted uncomfortably, their composure cracking. As for you, Tom, Gabe's voice hardened further. Your banking records show transfers totaling $2.3 million from offshore accounts linked to these gentlemen. You had me investigated? Tom's face contorted with pure rage, his betrayal exposed. No, you did this to yourself. The very same surveillance equipment you planted in my house captured your late-night conversation yesterday. Would you like to hear what you called me? A rich fool, I believe it was. Gabe pressed another button, and Tom's own voice, clear and chilling, filled the room. Once we empty his accounts, he'll be finished. 30 years I've watched him stumble into success, while smarter men like me struggle. The recording continued for another minute, revealing Tom's bitter resentment and envy before Gabe switched it off. The fake sheikh and his associate were already edging toward the door, their faces pale with terror, but they found it securely locked. The authorities have been notified, Gabe announced, his voice ringing with authority. Police officers are outside. I've provided them with comprehensive evidence of your conspiracy. Through the security feed, Anna watched as uniformed officers entered the conference room. The delegation, their faces now stripped of all pretense, were handcuffed and led away. Tom stood frozen, utterly paralyzed by disbelief and the sheer weight of his exposure. Why? Gabe asked him quietly, his voice now laced with a deep personal pain. 30 years of friendship, I would have given you anything you asked for, honestly. Tom's composure shattered. Because you have everything. He exploded, his voice raw with bitter resentment. The success, the recognition, the wealth, while I remained in your shadow. Do you know what it's like to be known only as Gabe's friend? To watch you succeed effortlessly while I work twice as hard for half the reward. Gabe shook his head sadly, the profound disappointment etched on his face. You were like a brother to me. Brothers should be equals, Tom spat, as officers finally led him away, his words echoing the depths of his long-held envy.
Good. We'll make the arrangements tomorrow. Gabe paused, a different thought emerging, one that seemed almost disconnected from the day's events. There's something else I've been meaning to ask. Your village near Musanze, what's it called?
Cora, sir. A small place. You wouldn't know it, she replied, surprised by the sudden shift in topic. His face changed subtly, a flicker of recognition, or perhaps something more profound. Cora with the view of the volcanoes, near the gorilla sanctuary? Anna's eyes widened, her surprise evident. Yes, how did you know? Gabe opened his desk drawer and removed an old, slightly faded photograph. It showed a young woman, vibrant and smiling, standing beside a much younger version of himself, perhaps 20 years old. This was taken 28 years ago, he said quietly, his voice distant, filled with memory. With a woman named Marie Keza. Anna's hand flew to her mouth, a gasp escaping her lips. Marie Keza was my mother's name, she breathed, her voice trembling. A profound silence descended upon the room, broken only by the rapid beating of Anna's heart. She never told you about me, Gabe asked, his voice barely audible. She said my father was a university student who returned to Kigali before knowing she was pregnant. She died during the events of 1994, when I was barely a child, Anna recounted, the words heavy with past sorrow. Gabe's hands trembled slightly, clutching the old photograph. I was that student, he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. We were in love, but my father fell ill, and I had to return home suddenly. I wrote letters that were never answered. When the genocide happened, I searched for her, but the records, so many, were lost. The letters, Anna whispered, a new piece of her personal history clicking into place. My grandmother mentioned letters she had hidden. She never approved of you.
They sat in stunned silence, the implications of this unbelievable revelation hanging between them, reshaping their entire perception of their shared past.
Do you have any proof? Gabe finally asked, his voice strained, though he seemed to already believe. I don't mean to doubt, but... My birth certificate, Anna said, her voice stronger now, filled with a new certainty. It lists my father as Gabe K.,
My grandmother refused to use your full name, but wouldn't lie outright on an official document. Gabe covered his face with his hands, a wave of profound emotion washing over him. All these years, and you've been working in my house for 3 years without either of us knowing? It seems impossible, she agreed, the enormity of it settling in. We need a DNA test to be certain, he said, though his tone suggested the test was a mere formality. But the timing, your mother's name, your birthplace? I was there exactly 9 months before you were born. And I have your eyes, Anna said softly, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. My mother always said I had my father's eyes. Gabe stood and walked to the window, his back to her, emotional conflict evident in the tension of his shoulders. If this is true, and I believe it is, I've missed your entire life. Your childhood, your education, your marriage. Anna's reply was simple, heartbreaking in its honesty. And I've missed having a father. He turned back to her, his eyes now shining with unshed tears. I can never recover those years, but perhaps we can begin now. Anna felt tears welling in her own eyes, a profound sense of peace and longing. I would like that, she managed, her voice thick with emotion. Tomorrow we'll arrange the test, though I don't need it to know the truth. He approached her slowly, a man reaching out for a connection he never knew existed. May I? Would it be appropriate to embrace you? She stood and nodded, too emotional to speak. As Gabe wrapped his arms around the daughter he never knew he had, the mansion that had known only business transactions and superficial relationships witnessed something it rarely had before: genuine human connection, a bond forged not by blood tests, but by unseen loyalty and a shared, profound discovery.
Anna pulled back from Gabe's embrace, a small, soft laugh escaping her lips. The house staff will certainly talk, she said, imagining the bewildered expressions of the other maids and security guards. Gabe's face, still tender from the emotion of their discovery, broke into a proud, knowing smile. Let them, he replied, a new lightness in his voice. In fact, they'll have much more to discuss soon. The maid who became not only the boss's assistant, but his daughter. Now, that's a story even Kigali gossips couldn't invent. It's almost unbelievable, Anna agreed, shaking her head in wonder. Like something from a movie. Gabe's gaze softened as he looked at her, his long-lost child. Reality often surpasses fiction, he said, still processing the immense magnitude of their discovery. Just 1 week ago, Gabe Caney had believed he possessed everything a man could desire: vast wealth, a thriving business empire, respect in the community, and a seemingly secure future. Now, he recognized the profound emptiness that had always lingered beneath the surface of his opulent life. He had been missing something he never knew to seek, a fundamental connection that no amount of success could buy. The maid, the quiet, observant Anna, had not only saved his financial future, but had also unknowingly brought him the greatest treasure of his life: a daughter. As night fell over Kigali's 1,000 hills, casting long shadows across the very mansion that had borne witness to so much deceit and now so much truth, two people who had been strangers despite sharing a roof, and, as it turned out, blood, stood on the threshold of a new journey. They were no longer just employer and employee, but father and daughter, beginning the complex yet deeply hopeful process of becoming a family. The mansion, once merely a symbol of Gabe's immense wealth and business transactions, transformed. It was no longer just an extravagant house, but something Gabe had never truly experienced despite all his success. A home finally filled with genuine human connection and the promise of a future built on love and rediscovered kinship. What an incredible journey of discovery and resilience. If this story touched your heart, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to Grand Aura Stories for more incredible tales, and share your biggest takeaway in the comments below. Has an unexpected connection ever changed your life?